Ayan had been dreaming of her long before he ever knew her name. Long before he knew the city she lived in, or the sound of her laughter, or the way her eyes would soften when she smiled. Because some connections begin not in reality, but in something deeper. Something that slips into the mind when the world is quiet and the heart is open. And for Ayan, it started on a night when rain pressed softly against the windows of his small apartment, and the only light came from the glow of the city far below. When sleep pulled him under with unusual gentleness, and he found himself standing in a place that did not exist in waking life. A field bathed in silver moonlight where the air felt warm and familiar. And in that dream, she was there, a woman with eyes that held entire galaxies, hair that moved like it was part of the wind itself, and a presence so overwhelming that even in the dream he felt his breath catch. Because she did not feel imagined, she felt remembered, as though he had known her before time had separated them. And she walked toward him with a smile that carried both sadness and recognition, reaching for his hand in a way that made his chest ache. And when their fingers touched it, it was like a current ran through him. Not just attraction, but something older, something rooted in a place beyond thought. And she spoke his name, even though he had never told her voice soft and steady. And when he asked her who she was, she only smiled and said, "You will find me when you are ready." And then the dream faded as gently as it had begun, leaving him awake in his dark room with his heart racing and the echo of her presence still lingering on his skin. And from that night on, she became a quiet obsession. Not in a desperate or unhealthy way, but in the way a song gets stuck in your soul and refuses to leave. Because every night he dreamed of her again and again, sometimes walking with her through streets he did not recognize, sometimes sitting with her beside oceans he had never seen, sometimes simply lying beside her under skies that shimmered with stars. And always there was the same feeling of being home. The same unspoken knowing that she was not just a dream, but someone he was meant to meet. And in his waking life, he began to manifest her without fully realizing what he was doing. Writing her into the margins of his notebooks, sketching the curve of her smile, whispering her into the quiet moments before sleep, believing with a kind of stubborn hope that if he held on to her strongly enough, the universe would eventually bring her into his arms. And as weeks turned into months, he noticed how everything around him started to shift in small, strange ways. How songs on the radio would seem to echo his thoughts about her. How strangers would say things that felt like signs. How even the wind felt like it carried her name. And yet he had no idea where to find her or how. Only that somewhere out there she was living her own life, unaware that a man she had never met was already in love with the idea of her soul. And then one day in a crowded cafe where the air smelled of coffee and rain and soft music played from hidden speakers, Ayan looked up from his notebook and saw her sitting across the room. Exactly as she had been in his dreams, the same eyes, the same hair, the same quiet intensity that made the world seem to fade around her. And in that moment, everything inside him went still. Because this was not imagination, this was not coincidence. This was the manifestation of every whispered prayer and every sleepless night. And his heart knew before his mind could catch up that he had found her. The woman who had been waiting for him in his dreams. The woman who was somehow, impossibly, his soulmate. If you like this story, please take a second and subscribe. This will motivate us to bring more stories for you. Ayan sat frozen in that cafe as though the universe itself had suddenly leaned in close and whispered its greatest secret directly into his ear. Because the woman he had dreamed about so many nights, the woman whose presence felt more real to him than half the people he passed every day, was sitting only a few tables away, stirring her coffee slowly, lost in her own quiet world. And the way she tilted her head, the way her fingers moved against the cup, Even the subtle curve of her lips when she smiled at something on her phone. All of it matched the woman who had reached for him in moonlit fields and star-washed skies. And for a moment, he was afraid to move. Afraid that if he blinked too long, she might dissolve back into the dream world she had come from. But reality did not fade. The clink of dishes and the murmur of voices around them stayed, and she stayed too. And that was when he realized that whatever force had woven their souls together had finally decided it was time for their paths to cross. And with trembling hands, he closed his notebook, stood up, and walked toward her with a mixture of certainty and fear pulsing through his veins. Because how do you approach someone when you already feel like you have lived a lifetime with them, and yet have never exchanged a single word? And when she looked up at him, their eyes met and something unmistakable flickered between them, a recognition so deep it startled her too. Because she inhaled sharply as though she had just been reminded of something she had forgotten but never truly lost. And before he could even introduce himself, she asked softly if she knew him. And Ayan almost laughed at how perfectly the universe had scripted that moment. Because in some strange and impossible way, they did know each other. Not through names or places or memories that could be explained, but through something quieter and more profound. And he told her his name, and she told him hers. It was Alina. And the way she said it felt like a melody he had been humming his entire life without realizing it. And they spoke awkwardly at first, like two strangers who were both pretending not to notice the gravity pulling them together. But beneath every word, there was an undercurrent of something more. Something that made even the smallest exchange feel loaded with meaning. And when she mentioned a dream she had been having lately, about a man she could not quite remember, but who felt strangely familiar, Ayan felt his chest tighten because he knew with terrifying clarity that she was dreaming of him too. And as they talked, the cafe around them seemed to fade, time slowing into something softer, more intimate. And it was not lust that filled the space between them, but something deeper, something that made the air feel warm and electric, as if every unspoken thought was brushing against the other's skin. And when their hands accidentally touched as they reached for sugar packets, neither of them pulled away because the contact felt like confirmation, like a quiet yes whispered by the universe itself. And as the afternoon light shifted and painted her face in gold, Ayan realized that this was only the beginning of something that would change them both forever. A connection that had been written long before they ever learned to speak its language. I hope you have subscribed. If not, please take a moment and subscribe. As the afternoon bled slowly into evening and the cafe lights began to glow softly like scattered stars, Ayan and Alina remained locked in a conversation that felt less like two people meeting and more like two long-separated halves, remembering how to fit together again. Every word they exchanged carried a subtle warmth. Every smile lingered just a second longer than it needed to. And when she laughed, it felt to him like a sound he had been missing all his life. And in the way she listened to him, there was a tenderness that made him feel truly seen. Not for the achievements he could list or the stories he could tell, but for the quiet hopes he rarely dared to voice. And he told her about his dreams, about how he would wake up sometimes with the sensation that someone had just slipped out of his arms, leaving behind only the echo of her presence. And Alina's eyes shimmered as she admitted that she had felt the same, that she too would wake in the night feeling as though she had just been kissed by something invisible yet achingly real, and the realization that their subconscious selves had been finding each other long before their waking selves ever did made the world feel suddenly enchanted, like they were standing inside a story written by destiny itself. And when they finally decided to leave the cafe and walk through the softly lit streets together, there was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just a gentle alignment of steps as if their bodies had already learned each other's rhythm. And as they passed glowing shop windows and quiet corners, their shoulders brushed occasionally, sending a quiet thrill through both of them. Not the kind born of desire alone, but of something far more profound. The kind that comes from recognizing home in another person. And they talked about everything and nothing. About childhood memories and unspoken dreams. About the things that scared them and the things that made them feel alive. And with every revelation they shared, the invisible thread between them seemed to tighten, weaving their stories into one. And at a small park where the city noise softened to distant hums, they stopped beneath a canopy of gently swaying trees, and for a moment neither of them spoke, because words felt suddenly too small for what was unfolding. And Ayan looked at her, really looked at her, not just as the woman from his dreams, but as the living, breathing soul standing in front of him. And in her eyes, he saw both curiosity and a vulnerability that mirrored his own. And without thinking, he reached for her hand, not in a hurried way, but with a quiet reverence, as though he was touching something sacred, and she did not pull away. Instead, she let her fingers intertwine with his, their palms fitting together with a naturalness that made both of them inhale softly. And in that simple gesture, there was an intimacy more powerful than any grand declaration. A promise that whatever this was, it was real. And in that moment, the world around them seemed to fade into a soft blur, leaving only two hearts beating in a shared rhythm, slowly, steadily, as if they had finally found the tempo they had been searching for all along. As the evening deepened and the sky above them turned into a vast canvas of dark blue brushed with silver stars, Ayan and Alina found themselves still standing in that quiet park, hands intertwined. Neither of them quite ready to let go of the moment that felt as delicate and powerful as a held breath. And the air around them seemed to hum with all the unspoken emotions that had been building between them since the first instant their eyes had met. And slowly, almost cautiously, Ayan began to tell her about the dream that had started it all. About the first night he had seen her in his sleep standing on a beach with moonlight in her hair, looking at him as if she had been waiting for him across lifetimes. And as he spoke, his voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of how deeply those dreams had shaped his heart. And Alina listened with tears, quietly gathering in her eyes, because the beach he described was one she had walked in her own dreams. The same waves, the same lonely but beautiful horizon. And when she told him this, they both felt the last pieces of doubt fall away, leaving only a profound knowing that what they were experiencing was not coincidence but connection, something woven beyond logic, and they moved closer, not rushed. Not consumed by desire alone, but drawn by a magnetic pull of recognition. And when their foreheads touched, it felt like two worlds gently colliding, bringing with them every longing, every hope, every unfulfilled wish they had carried for so long. And in that quiet closeness, there was a sensuality that went deeper than skin, a warmth that spread through their chests and settled in their souls. And when they finally kissed, it was soft and slow, a meeting of lips that carried the weight of all the dreams they had shared unknowingly. And it was not about hunger or urgency, but about belonging, about finally finding the place where they could rest their hearts. And as they stood there wrapped in each other's presence, they both understood that love was not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it arrived gently, whispered through dreams and guided by invisible hands until two people were brave enough to recognize it. And as the night wrapped around them like a protective cloak, Ayan and Alina knew that whatever challenges waited beyond this moment, whatever uncertainties the future might hold, they would face them together. Because the day you stop quitting on love, on hope, on the quiet voice inside that tells you something beautiful is waiting for you, is the day everything begins to change. And in each other's arms, they felt that change, warm and certain, unfolding at last. If you want to see more extra romantic stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We work really hard to bring these stories to you, so your likes truly matter. Feel free to share your own stories in the comments below. We look forward to that.